On April 19, 1995, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City was completely destroyed by a terrorist bomb attack, which took the lives of 168 people and injured more than 680 people. This was known as the Oklahoma City bombing. Since I was born in 1995, I was too young to remember this event. And up until I started researching for this speech, I had never even heard of the Oklahoma City bombing. This bombing was the worst terrorist attack up to this point, and it sparked many changes in the protection of federal buildings in the U.S. The planning of this attack began when Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols met in 1988 at training camp. McVeigh and Nichols shared many similar interests, such as survivalism, opposed gun control, and they both supported the militia movement. Both of them expressed extreme anger towards the federal government, so that together they decided to plan an attack. They weighed many possible options and decided on the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. They chose this because of its glass front, which McVeigh expected to shatter under the impact of the blast. According to About.com, they purchased or stole all materials they needed for the bomb and created the bomb completely on their own. They decided to detonate the bomb at 11 o'clock on April 19th, but when he woke up, he was so anxious that he did it at 9 o'clock instead. At 8:57, McVeigh lit the 5-minute fuse. He parked his truck in a drop-off zone situated under the building's daycare center. He then locked the truck and headed to his getaway car. He dropped the keys to his truck a few blocks away. The blast could be heard and felt up to 55 miles away. According to the Indianapolis Star, there was over 1,800 911 calls regarding the bombing. The first came in at 9:03 and 25 seconds on April 19th. McVeigh may have gotten away to begin with, but that didn't last long. Within 90 minutes of the explosion, McVeigh was arrested. A few days later, Terry Nichols was related to McVeigh and arrested as well. This case was the largest criminal investigation case in American history. The FBI conducted over 28,000 interviews and collected nearly 1 billion pieces of evidence. McVeigh was sentenced to the death penalty, and Nichols was sentenced to life in prison. The Oklahoma City bombing was the largest and deadliest terrorist attack to that point, and it remained the largest until the 9/11 attack. The casualties concluded at 168 deaths and 680 injured. 646 people were in the Murrah building at the time of the bombing, but many people were also injured in nearby buildings and parking lots. About 1/3 of the Oklahoma City population knew someone who was directly affected by the attack. This bombing also affected legislation and the government in many ways. In 1996, the government enacted the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. They also increased security around federal buildings. They required all federal buildings to be surrounded with prefabricated barriers, and they required them to be set back from surrounding streets to minimize their vulnerability to truck bombs. The Oklahoma City bombing may have been a catastrophic event at the time, but since it caused the government to increase security around federal buildings, this event may have saved the U.S. government from further attacks. The bombing affected the lives of about 1/3 of the population of Oklahoma City, but it didn't just affect them. The bombing hit home for citizens all over the U.S. I was too young to realize what was going on at the time, but now I have researched and learned more about the attack, and I truly understand what has happened. Today, the Oklahoma City bombing tends to be forgotten and buried under the memories from 9/11, but it should still be remembered by citizens all around the U.S.